Good morning. This is Bill from Curious Cars on a, it's a pretty miserable Florida June Monday morning. It's humid, it's a little bit crappy already, and honestly, it's not even 7 o'clock yet. There's some birds going ape shit around here. They sound really pissed off, and they've got, they're situated in a way my back's to them, so that's a little bit troubling, but I'm going to try to keep an eye and hope they don't do anything untoward. And in the meantime, we're going to leap and dive directly into this car. And the reason for that is this is going to be a quick take. It has nothing to do with my nephew, I promise. He is a snowflake. He does have a 12-second attention span, but he is not behind a short video on this one. The reason for it is I've already covered a Series 3 Jaguar in depth, and I will link to that below. In fact, I covered 2 of them, so there's just no reason to get into all of it. The reason I wanted to highlight this car is because it's pretty cool and somewhat unusual, and has been set up in a very neat car guy sort of way. So it's just going to be a quick take on this particular car. This is one of the cars I'm bringing to Mecum in Kissimmee, and that's in early July. God, I mean, Jeff, time flies. I thought I had months to get everything ready. Now all of a sudden I've got just a few weeks, and that's where I'm at. So if you have any interest in this thing, it's going to be there. That's where it's going, along with some others from the stable that just need to go. And I bought it at a Mecum actually a while back, and I just couldn't resist. I mean, for one thing, whoever owned it, put too much money into restoring it. Restoring a Jaguar is an expensive proposition. And number 2, and the most poignant feature on the car, they converted it to having a manual transmission, which is not unknown in the Series 3, but it is unknown in the U.S. market Series 3s. Not a single manual came here. They all had Borg-Warner automatics. This one, a guy spent some serious coin to convert to a manual gearbox, and I have to say it radically alters the feel of the car, and in a very, very good way. But let's do a quick overview. So look, despite the reputation, Jaguars have mystique, as they call it. And what mystique loosely translates into is a desire to own the car despite multiple unexpected breakdowns, expensive repairs, engine fires, all that sort of stuff that goes along with the owning of an older Jaguar. I will say that the Series 3 really doesn't suffer from that same thing the way that earlier Jaguars do, but it still suffers from that. I always used to say that Mercedes benefits, today Mercedes benefits from a past reputation that it doesn't deserve today, while Jaguar suffers from a past reputation that it doesn't deserve. But the reason they don't deserve it is they all build the same friggin' cars now. They just have slightly different sheet metal over all of the same electronics and engines and whatnot. And this car, this Series 3, this 87, it was from a time when car companies had much more identity. I mean, it was like, look, you hear a ZZ Top song on the radio, it's a ZZ Top song. I mean, there's no question about it. Nothing else sounds like it. Back when this car was made and you saw a Jaguar running down the street, you knew it was a Jaguar. Fast forward 40 years or whatever the hell it is now, and you really can't tell one car from the other. An SUV goes down the road, it could be a Hyundai, a Jaguar, a Mercedes, or even a Bentley. You just don't know. But when this car was made, very, very different stories. Cars had their own sort of unique qualities and looks, feel, switchgear, all sorts of things that made you know exactly who built them. And that's one of the reasons that I really appreciate this era of automobiles. I think all of it started to change in the 90s. So in the 80s, there was no mistaking a Jaguar for a Mercedes. That just wasn't something that was going to happen. Now, this is the last true Jaguar. At least that's what I said in the video that I did on one of these things a while back. And I had to retract my statement that a later one was. I mean, the later one, the 07s, 06s, they look like Jaguars, but they're not necessarily underneath. This is the last of the Jags to have the true full influence of a very interesting guy named Sir William Lyons. And he was the fellow who actually started Jaguar and turned, look, there was a bunch of little bespoke companies over the years that went bankrupt and vanished. And Jaguar could easily have been one of them. But through the genius and perseverance of William Lyons, Jaguar persisted. And that's why it's an internationally famous brand today. So he's a guy that's worth looking into. Pretty incredible cat. He didn't have any of the he would go and draw a car on a piece of paper and then make it happen, and it would be one of the most beautiful designs in history, and he would do it without the aid of any computer-aided drafting or wind tunnels, or he just had this brilliance in him that created these cars that have stood the test of time in terms of cosmetics and appearances and beauty, and it really does go to his credit. But anyway, so the Series 3, this one, is the last true Jaguar. The Series 1 came out in about 1970, and it replaced 3 Jaguar models, 2 little ones and 1 big bloated one. And it sort of combined them all into one car, which is, necessitated by Jaguar's financials. And Jaguar Financials is the true history of Jaguar. The company was always broke. And always they remind me of AMC a little bit in that regard. But anyway, so in 1970, the Series 3 came out. Sorry, the Series 1 XJ came out. And it was instantly a massive hit. I mean, the Swiss actually had to picket Jaguar headquarters because they weren't getting their fair share of Jaguars. I mean, it was considered one of the best sedans in the world, and it was being offered at a fairly bargain price for a luxury car. They couldn't keep them on the shelves. And, even that, though, did not save Jaguar. And, of course, it went into the British Leyland period after that. The quality went down. The jokes started happening more and more. And it's just a shame. Fast forward to 1980, and the final redesign of the car, the Series 3, this one came out. And I think it was an absolute hit out of the park. By that time, William Lyons wasn't really involved, so they gave the car to a company called Pininfarina, which is an Italian design house. And they tweaked the design to make it not just more attractive, which they did manage to do, but also more functional. They added rear headroom, they added more headroom overall, and they made the car look, I think, a little bit more proper than the first 2 series, which are attractive. But this one really just brought it all together. And what I'm going to do in this video, because I cannot help it, is... Well, look, here's the thing. It's a car of my youth. I mean, beyond question. It's one of those cars that I grew up with, and it had an impact on me. There was a television show called The Equalizer in the 1980s. They've made remakes of it since then, but the original one was this sort of elegant British gentleman who was a former, MI5 or whatever, one of the British Secret Service types, and he would go around, fucking up people who, were trying to wreck a bike store and some nice old lady or something. He was just a good guy. And as an elegant man in a tweed type jacket, he drove a Series 3, and it fit the character because that is the type that would own this car. There was also LA Law, if you remember that. There's a famous, the trunk shut scene with the LA Law license plate. That was a Jaguar Series 3. And there was a movie, in fact, called... This one's a little more of a reference. Dudley Moore, I think it was called Crazy People. And what it was is Dudley Moore owned an ad agency. He was running out of ideas. He needed some fresh thought. So he went to an insane asylum and used the crazy people there to come up with ad campaigns. There was Volvo, they're boxy, but they're good. Jaguar was for men who want hand jobs from beautiful women they hardly know. And I have to tell you that no other statement, I think, so correctly sums up why some guys have to drive a Jaguar. Driving a car like this, with this style, with this feel, does confer on them an elegance, a mystique, something beyond what the big Teutonic humorless Mercedes and BMWs of the time didn't. I mean, they were incredible cars. They were also beautifully styled, but they were not nearly as elegant and stunning as this lower priced Jaguar was that competed with them. And I think that really means something. So, but mainly as a car of my youth, what I remember more are the series of Whitesnake videos. God, there's a name. But anyway, White and this girl, Tawny Katane, dancing around on the hood, pouring herself out the window, you know, an absolute sex kitten. And as a young teenager at the time, however old, I mean, man, did that have an impact on me. So it's going to be very hard for me not to sort of overlap a variety of photos of her dancing around on the hood or the windows or the interior of a Series 3 as we go through this video very, very quickly. Oh, God. So anyway, if you want to see the history of Jaguar or a more in-depth view of the Series 3, then click on one of the links below to the videos that I did before. So we're going to jump into this one. If you look at the styling of the car, well, it's absolutely beautiful. It uses the 4-round headlights. This one, the guy converted to the Euro lights, which is kind of interesting. And, you know, this was not cheap when it came out. All of these curves, all of these creases, all of the rounded edges, they're easy to do now with the way that, you know, machines and engineering are set up. Back then, it cost a lot, and that was a big portion of why Jaguar ran into money troubles, was everything they did was kind of expensive, and then they didn't get that out of the back end. Pininfarina shortened the bumpers on this one. They put chrome caps on top. Looks terrific. Slightly angled grille with vertical slats only. Very, very clean. This one does not have a leaper. They use an abundance of chrome, and yet at the same time it manages to look tasteful, even with these big chrome wire wheels with knockoffs, which were a nice dealer added option at the time. But you've got giant chrome mirrors, you've got chrome around the windshield, you've got chrome around the side windows. Pininfarina sunk the door handles in, made them chrome, although not surrounded by chrome. You've got twin chrome gas caps, chrome around the rear window, big ledge on the back of the trunk, in chrome. They widened the tail lamps and integrated the reverse lights. Stainless pipes out the back. They're not chrome, but they're shiny. Big chrome cap on the back bumper. You know, the chrome on a Jaguar is a thing that is absolutely carved in stone. And, you know, when Jaguar modernized itself, they went away from that. Oh, we have to get away from our past. Well, you know, I think that's a damn shame. Anyway, so let's look inside the trunk and see what we got here. And like I said, quick video, but the idea is just to show the uniqueness of this particular one. So it has a very big, shallow trunk. It's huge, but at the same time, it's not very deep. So you're only going to fit in there what you're going to, you know, Princess Di and Charles could do a weekend getaway, but they'd probably have to have a van behind them with all their shit in it. You see the toolkit on the side there, and, you know, all very nice. And in fact, if you had to store children in there, well, you could get a few, probably 3 or 4 toddlers. And, you know, it's nicely carpeted and padded. So even if you're driving a little bit spirited on a country road into your way, you know, somewhere fancy, the kids probably aren't going to be bounced around too much, so not bad. But underneath this thing, you'll find the spare tire, and behind that partition there, you'll find the gas tank. So, you know, just anyway, kind of a neat design. This one is a Vanden Plas, which was, of course, more money back then and more money today. Oh, for God's sake, there's the trunk. Vanden Plas was a coach builder. Started in 1870, actually, building wagon axles and whatnot, but went on to build very, very fancy coaches for a variety of car makers, and Jaguar amongst them. And they used that name then to distinguish a higher-end model. This engine, this inline 6-cylinder, 4.2 liters, twin overhead cam, is truly the core of Jaguar, and one of the most, you know, it does, again, Jag gets a bad rap, but it's not really because of the engine. I mean, The design of this thing is very, very sound and very beautiful, put together by aircraft engineers back in, post-World War II days. And these engines, this first, the 4.2, and then the 5.3 V12, they form the core of all early Jaguars, basically. And they're, silky smooth. There really has never been a bad inline six in anything. I mean, it's just a lovely engine under the hood of this car. And to be honest, mated with the 5-speed that this one has, man, it becomes an absolute joy. And it just shows you what we were missing out that the European and other market models had. But anyway, I love the forward tilting hood, bonnet, if you will. We have the boot in the back. We use all the Jaguar lingo. And just terrific to look at. So I tell you what, I'm going to pause there for a minute. Let me get this down. Then we're going to have a quick look inside, go for a spin, and see where we're at. All right, so let's have a look inside. I love the tapered rear of that car going into the tail lamps, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece. Even the wires with those knockoffs and the angry, Jaguar on the front. Yeah, just terrific. So being a Vanden Plas, this one had sort of a special interior, and that means your Canadians in the back are going to be pretty chipper. You can fit 3 across, but it is designed essentially as a 2-passenger rear. You can see those beautiful big Connelly leather seats, very supportive, very comfortable. Thanks to Pininfarina, it's got headroom. If we sit in here, we're not going to, again, with the royal family and whatnot, they need to be able to, sit in without bending low. Being a Vanden Plas, has those little map lights up there. It's got special wood trim. You can see that burl there with the pinstripes in it. It's got a special rear console with a very, it's got, because everyone smoked back then, particularly in England. So you've got the ashtray, you've got a lighter, you've got your power windows. Here, without leaning around later, there you can see the front had a lumbar. You got these little pockets. Vanden Plas later on would come with wooden trays, but in this generation, not so much. And a nice little map pocket, good place to put a handgun if you're a British gangster of some type, and somebody put Blaupunkt speakers in this thing to make it sound good. Even the inside trim of the car has chrome on it, which I think looks fantastic, and the big chrome Jaguar scuff plates. Again, the elegance of the car is absolutely inarguable. In the front, and this is again where I think it's just absolutely amazing. This could be a dashboard. It could be a setup from the 1950s or 60s, the way Jaguar did things. And again, a lot of people wouldn't have liked that in the 1980s. They went off and bought Mercedes, which were much more cutting edge at the time. But the ones who enjoyed a rich history and wanted to feel like they were in some kind of British gentleman's club would opt for the Jaguar. So, door panel, you've got a black and beige two-tone affair, very nice, lovely stitched leather armrest. You've got power mirror switches, sort of power but cunningly designed to look manual. You've got another speaker. You've got lovely chrome bits everywhere. Oh, God, it's just such a pretty, pretty car. And when we sit inside, this one has a wood wheel. I'm not sure it came with that. That strikes me as something that the last owner in this restoration might have put in, and it looks shockingly expensive. But maybe. Otherwise, I think it would have just come with a black stitched leather wheel. But you've got 6 big gauges here on the pod. You got your oil pressure voltmeter, an aircraft-style tachometer with a 5,000 red line. You've got your 140 mile an hour speedo, water temp, and fuel. Nice. If you want maximum defrost, they want you to close this, which is funny because I don't think that was a thing they had in every car. Over here you've got your center vents, you've got a trip computer digital, which is kind of an 80s thing, your cigarette lighter, your dimmer. This gas switch here alternates between the 2 rear tanks electrically, which does work on this car, and it reminds me a little bit of that that movie, the mockumentary, whatever the hell it was, with the why do the Marshall lamps go to 11? Well, because it's 11. Well, why didn't you just make 10 louder? because they go to 11. Well, why didn't they just make one 20-gallon tank instead of two 10 or 11 gallon, you know? Because it's Jaguar. There's your rear defrost. Here's your interior lights. You've got a leaper there looking at you. Normally I swap out radios, but this one kind of fit and didn't offend me too much, and it looks like it probably cost a fortune in the mid-90s, so I left it. And your climate control there. You've got 2 ashtrays again, because 3 ashtrays in this car. Fantastic. And here is what is so cool, is they must have gone and gotten this center console wood from England, because it's just too perfect with the ashtrays. But this is not factory, so this has been converted to a 5-speed manual with the Jag shift knob, the boot, the correct opening here. That had to be bright. You know, I put a clutch in this thing when I bought it because it felt a little weak, and I was able to track down a very rare pressure plate, you know, UK release, but I probably got the last one. And you know, it must have been fun for this guy to put it together. It's a Borg-Warner, could be a Tremec. Borg-Warner sold to Tremec in the 90s. T5, basically the same gearbox they would have put in a late 80s Mustang GT. Lean forward and you get all your power window switches, power sunroof, that sort of thing. Lovely glove box over here. Here's the mirror you can pop up. You can see Dalton did a nice job cleaning that, but that's so your lady friend, Tawny, whoever, you know, won't end up with a little powder on her nose. She can check herself before going in the restaurant, and a nice little place beside it to set up narcotics. So all very nice. And let's go for a spin. I'm going to get my key in here. This is a telescoping steering wheel, so if I spin this guy and loosen it, then I can pull the wheel out, push it in, get it to wherever I'm happy with. It does not tilt up and down, but, you know, again, this was kind of a vintage car the day that it was made, so what are you gonna do? Let me get my seatbelt on. Fire this thing up. Love it. And let's go for a spin. There you go, over to first gear in our Jag Series 3. And I tell you what, the thing about Jaguars, you have grace, pace, and space. Or is it grace, space, and pace? Doesn't matter. That was William Lyon's motto for Jaguar. That's what he wanted his cars to be. And this one absolutely defines it beautifully. I mean, for a luxury car at the time, it's very agile, has a very sporty suspension, a very responsive engine, and it becomes a car that's more fun to drive than a 126 at the time from Mercedes would have been. And that means something. So, I mean, a guy who likes driving his car is going to have more fun operating this Jaguar than the Benzes of the period. A little vibration there, but there you can see shifting it. I mean, it's just so cool having a Handshaker Series 3. And this is another one of those cars that I kind of fantasize about keeping, because honestly, how many are you going to find? You know, the ride is absolutely terrific. You feel you're connected to the road in terms of steering, in terms of sporty feel. There's no question about that. It has a much more sporty ride than the Mercedes of the era did. But at the same time, you feel insulated, almost like a Lexus. The bumps are smoothed over. The steering is just as smooth as can be. And the feel of the whole car is just terrific. Agile, light, lovely. It's almost like Lotus had a hand in it. So you've got four-wheel independent, you've got four-wheel disc brakes, and you know, that sort of sporting touch is, of course, appreciated by anyone who's a car guy. I have to fix that vibration, that's annoying. And there it is. because I tell you what, man, it has added a whole new dynamic to this car for me that I just didn't know existed until I saw this thing sitting there that day. And thought, man, I have to have that. And now I do, and here it is. But, you know, you have your fun with it, and then you move on. So if you have an interest with this one, again, it's going to be at Mecum early July, Mecum Kissimmee. Otherwise, thank you so much for having a look. Really, really appreciate it. Quick take. We'll have a longer video. I have a Ford Explorer, of all things, coming up. Kind of a dull car in its own way, but a very, very important car as well. So I'm going to try to get that one in before the end of the week, and I have a sneaking suspicion that'll be one of the 40-minute videos. So thank you very much for having a look. Really, really appreciate it, and we will see you with the next one. Take care.